You need to call me Dr. Phillips or Professor Phillips. This is my 5th year teaching at FSCJ. I teach anatomy and physiology 1 and 2 in the biological sciences, and I teach chemistry 1020, 1032C, 1025C, and 1032C in the physical sciences, which is the pre-healthcare chemistry. I used to teach a chemistry in the summer, but this summer I didn't. So I'll obviously, if you need chemistry, I'll let you know. Actually, my fall classes are already up, and I think I'm just teaching anatomy and physiology. I was a retired plastic surgeon. I like to go to school. I've got 2 doctorates. I've got an MD and a JD, so that's a law school degree, 2 masters, 1 in business and 1 in LLM, which is international taxation. I have a bachelor's in biology from the University of Louisville. I was almost finished a bachelor's here in computer science. And starting next week, I'm starting a master's in chemistry at Ohio University. I like to go to school. That's my hobby. Okay. It's not, I don't have to do it. I just like going to school. So if you're a little bit older and coming back to school, I can understand that's not a problem. This is Anatomy and Physiology 1. Traditionally, it's the hardest of classes. It's the hardest of classes because there's so much information to learn. You will have a little bit of an advantage because you're taking this online. And when you take your exams, they will be open notes, okay? I can't keep you from looking at your notes. The exams will not be proctored unless the department tells me that they have to be proctored. I don't want anybody to have to go into a center right now at this particular time. So they'll be online on Canvas, and we'll get to talking about those. And so you'll have a little bit of an advantage there in the fact that you'll be able to look some stuff up during your exam if you look it up in your notes and your textbook. We'll talk about that a little bit later. This is the start of the course in Canvas when you log in. I've got it very simple set up. If this is the start of course documents, okay? This is a security document. This is lab safety document. We really don't need that very much. This is your student contract, what this says in any online course you take. And then actually, if it would have been a face-to-face course, which is what this started out to be, I would hand you this out the first night. You'd have 2 weeks to turn it back in. What I'll do is you'll need to download it at some point, type your name in, type the date in, and type the class, which is BSc 2085C, summer 2020. And upload it to the assignment. Obviously, it won't be an assignment, you won't get any points there, but it will be an assignment you'll need to do. If you do not return your student contract, okay, before the first exam, you can take the exam, but your grade will not be posted until you turn in the exam. Excuse me, until you turn in the student contract. I need to have the student contract back from you at some point before the first exam. We'll talk about exams in a little bit. There's a welcome to Anatomy and Physiology. There's the syllabus, okay? The Pearson student registration and calendar of activities. And we'll come back to that in just a minute, okay? Right here is announcements. Probably the most important thing that you've got going for you on an online course. I'm big on announcements. As you can already see, I've already sent a bunch over, okay? I am big on announcements. You need to check your mail in the morning and the evening. A lack of knowledge about my announcements is not an excuse for not having done something. If we need to upgrade the calendar of activities, if we need to do something, it will be announced on the announcements, okay? Like I say, I'm really big about announcements. Announcements go out to the whole class. So I can tell the whole class at one time, as opposed to trying to tell an individual at one time. Down here, you will see this week 1, okay? You'll see this week 1 here, okay? Week 1, I will send this out usually on Sunday or Monday of every week to tell you what you got going for this week, to tell you what's due, and to give you some little hints about things, okay? This is and so this will come out every week. You'll have week 1 through week 15. Online classes, lectures, and synchronous teaching. Obviously, when some of you signed up for this class, it was going to be face-to-face hybrid class at the Deerwood Center from 6 to 8:30. I love the Deerwood Center because you got great parking. You park right outside the door, and the classrooms are right there. And so that would have been a nice class to have. but it, you know, with the things that the way things were, when we switched over to online teaching for the spring semester, it was an announcement later on made that we needed to get ready for summer semester teaching online. So we were in the process of doing that. And now the general consensus is this entire summer class will be online unless, you know, unless it changes their mind. But the classes now for the summer are set up to be online. So I've set this class up to be online and we'll proceed that. If you're taking a C7 class, which is the second term 7-week class, the possibility exists that that class might be actually on site, but I doubt I do not see them taking our class from being online to on site. So this is pretty much the way it's going to be. Okay, so we're going to be online. This is something that's obviously nobody read. Okay, this is the email policy. This is set down by Dr. Sterling. Dr. Sterling is my boss. She's the chair of the biological science. Okay, she is my boss. She says you will use your school email. You will use your school email to send me emails. I will not respond to any emails that come from any private emails, Hotmail, Gmail, whatever it is. I won't respond to it. So this creates a log both for you and for me. So I would like all communications to me to come by way of school email. In the subject matter line, first thing I'd like to do is either put BSc 2085C or BSc 2086C. I have two classes this semester. One's Anatomy and Physiology 1, one's Anatomy and Physiology 2. So if you'll put whatever the class number is, you know, 2085C, BSc, or 2086C, then I'll know immediately how my focus should be. The next thing you do is put your name, okay? Your college name, whatever they have you listed at. So I know who I'm talking. Then as soon as you get into the body of the message, go right to the point. Just tell me what you need, tell me what you don't understand, tell me what you don't know, okay? And then I can take care of the message. I usually respond most of the time same day, okay? Most of the time same day. I'll be starting 2 graduate courses, modern inorganic chemistry and physical chemistry in my graduate chemistry program next week, but I check my phone real often. I respond to emails usually the same day or the next day. Next month, I'll be 70 years old. I go to bed early. Okay, I go to bed 9 or 10 o'clock. You get into a jam, okay, because you didn't do your assignment and it's due at 11:55 and you send me an email at 10 o'clock, I'm sorry you bought it, okay? Don't do that. You don't want to do that, okay? Don't wait till the last minute. Don't send me emails at 10 o'clock and expect an immediate response because it's not going to happen, all right? Because I go to bed. So email policy is very important. You send me an email from the school email. You do not piggyback onto another email. If you have a fresh problem, whatever the problem is, you start a new email. We will keep that email going back and forth till that problem is resolved. If I send out an announcement saying grades are ready to look at, and you piggyback on that email coming back to me, okay, I don't like that. Let's start an email. Let's keep it on one subject. Or if it's a couple of subjects, let's keep it there. Let's keep it going. And once we're done with that email. So I hope everybody understands that. So that's a big email policy, okay? And that is put out by Dr. Sterling, okay? So you will use your school mail. If you send me something that's not on the school email, you may either, I will write in email policy and send it back to you. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. I will write email policy and send it back to you because this is what Dr. Sterling says, okay? So let's go back up here. I don't know if you've noticed, but home and modules are the same thing. Home and modules are the same thing. So let's go back up here to home. Let's look first at the syllabus, okay? The syllabus is, a lot of it is standard boilerplate stuff. If you want to, make your copy of it, which I like to do for a lot of stuff, you just go up and hit that link. and hit that. And now you got a copy of it if you want to make a copy. It's pretty much standard stuff. It is, you know, course information. We're going to start out with, I will answer questions as soon as we're done, as long as there are questions to be asked. I will, in the future, try to be here a half hour early because I'm just waiting around to start the class like most of you are. But you can, my preferred method is obviously contact me with email, and I'll get back to you with regards to email, course description, course information. You know, it tells the time for, this is important for if you decide you don't want to take the class. This is a withdrawal. It's very important. This is when the class ends. So we're starting this week. We're going to end in May the 18th. We have 2 school holidays, none of which affect us. The first is Memorial Day, and the second is the Friday before the 4th of July. We're located online. Okay, this is the textbook. If you bought the lab book and can get your money back, I would just suggest you do that. If you can't, just let me know. But if you bought a lab book and can get your money back, because we're going to be doing online labs. I mean, the lab book is an asset. There's no doubt about it. Okay. But if you can get your money back, I would try to get my money back. But if you can't, just let me know. Let me know how much you pay for it. These are our course objectives and our learning outcomes. Let's talk. There are 3 things here that you get grades for. The first is exams. There are 4 exams. Okay. We no longer in anatomy and physiology 1 have a comprehensive final exam. That went away last year. Okay. So we have 4 exams. They're non-cumulative. In other words, the first exam will be chapter 1 through 4. We won't go back through chapter 1 through 4 on the next exam. However, the material that we learn in chapters 1 through 4 will be information that we need in further exams. Okay. But that specific material, in other words, proximal, distal, medial, lateral, terms that we use that we're going to use throughout the class, and other particular terms will not be tested on per se, only as they apply. So there are going to be 4 exams. They're worth 125 points each. They will consist of 4 potential types of questions: multiple choice, true, false, matching, and short answer. Okay, there's no essay questions, but there is a maybe 1-page short answer question. That would be how long a short answer question might be. Anywhere from 25 to 50%, 25 to 50% of your grade is going to be in short answer questions. The test is primarily going to come from the student notes, which we'll look at in a little bit, the slides, which we'll look at in a little bit, and your textbook. I would know the student notes and the slides cold, okay? Which means if you don't understand what that means you know them by heart, okay? Because it's in order to ensure the integrity of the exam, you can ask short answer questions and make it time sensitive, because people have a tendency to go to the internet and look up the questions. And we'll talk about that as we get towards the exam. Because if you go to the internet and you look up the answers to the questions and the short answer questions, you copy and paste them on there, you're going to get a 0, no questions asked. If you give a test answer to another student, or you have a student there and your answer and their answer are exactly the same, same period, same punctuation, same everything, both of you are going to get 0, no questions asked. But we'll discuss that later on. So your primary source of information is actually 4 of them. Number 1 is the student notes, which you'll need to fill out. Okay. The student notes come from the slides. Those are Dr. Oler's things. Dr. Oler is the chair of anatomy and physiology. She's over at the South Campus, and she helped me a whole lot during this transition. And her notes come from the slides. Okay. So, but they're not comprehensive. So the notes, the student notes that you'll fill out, the slides, Dr. Oler's primarily her slides. Now this evening we will look at look at some Pearson slides only because they have the anatomy and physiology part for anatomical structures. And then your textbook, and finally the fourth source is anything I say in the lecture, okay? You need to be in lecture. If you can't be in lecture, the lectures are going to be recorded. So number one, you need to be in lecture. If you can't be in lecture, the lectures are going to be recorded, and they will be put up onto the website. It's being recorded now to the cloud, to the Zoom cloud. And so they will be posted and they will be available to you, okay? So 4 exams, not cumulative, okay? They are all posted when they're going to be. They will be open for a week. You'll have one chance at taking them. Once you start taking the exam, you click begin, your timer is going to run, okay? And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Next is, so that's worth 125 points, 4 exams, that's 500 points of your grade. The next thing is lab modules, that's 300 points of your grade. Normally we would have lab practicals, okay? Normally we'd have lab practicals, but we're not going to be able to do that. So we're going to have a total of 10 lab modules. You already have 1 lab module assigned. Lab modules are usually assigned on Monday, and you have 2 weeks to do them. And when we look at the calendar of activities, you will see that. We have 2 weeks to do them. I do not accept late work. You have 2 weeks to do it. If you wait till 9 o'clock to do it and you have problems on uploading the thing, I'm sorry. You waited to the last minute. You have 2 weeks to do it. I do not accept late work. You have more than enough time to take care of your work, okay? Don't wait till the last minute. Most of them are fairly easy. The one tonight is questions I made up based on the slides that we're going to show in anatomy and physiology, and some questions that require just a little bit of thought, but there's going to be 10 of them. They have varying degrees of points. The one that's assigned tonight counts 20 points. I think it's 10 questions, maybe it's 20 questions. Probably might be 20 because I can't remember, but it's 20 points, and we'll look at it, okay? So that is 500 points for your exams, 300 points for the lab modules, and finally Pearson assignments. On Pearson assignments, you will have at a minimum 3 assignments. You will have a reading quiz, a homework quiz, and a chapter test, okay? They are assigned in advance. And after the first test, right now up until the first test, I will put them out 1 week at a time. After the first test, I will put the next block of Pearson assignments as a block there, because the Pearson assignments are due on the day that the exam closes. The Pearson assignments for that exam, so it'd be chapters 1 through 4, are due on the day that the exam closes. Now, obviously, you would want to do the Pearson assignments before the exam, especially the chapter test and the homework, because some of those questions are very similar. But that counts 200 points, and they may be 800 points accumulated from the total Pearson assignments, but that will be ratio and proportions. You learn that in math. That will be ratio and proportions into the 200 points. The majority of students, 90% of the class makes the full points. So in my 2 classes last semester, Pearson was 400 points one class and 300 points in another. 95% of all students got the full points. So if you do your lab modules and you do your Pearson assignments and you get them in on time, you've already made 500 points in the course, okay? So, and then all you have to do is learn your notes and the slides for your exam, and you should be in good shape. Now we'll talk about exams later on, okay? But that's the 3 assignments. I would prefer to go, okay, we can look at calendar activities here. The calendar of activities, not in the syllabus, but under course documents, is the most up-to-date one, okay? So if we go, we'll even, let me go back. We're going to go over calendar activities. All this information is in the calendar of activities. Okay. Academic dishonesty, late makeup work. I don't accept late makeup work. I expect you to behave as ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Keys to success are the same success for any class. classes I've taken, and I violated every one of these rules probably. Okay. I'm almost 70 years old. I've been going to school all my life. Keep up with the material. Don't let yourself get too far behind. Don't wait to the last minute to ask for help. And if you've got something going on in your life, let me know. Okay. If you got something going on in your life, let me know. Because sometimes we have things going on in our life. Okay. You might, if you've got kids, your kids might be sick, your spouse might be sick. There could be things going on. So let me know. Okay. There's also, I'm not so uncaring that I wouldn't take care of somebody who has something going on. Okay. My goal, if you talk to anybody, is for everybody in this class to get an A or B. That's my goal here, and I stated in the first lecture that we have that my goal is to get an A or B. And if you're not getting an A or B, okay, you're not getting an A or B, and you're trying to get to a healthcare program, you're probably not going to get in. So if you will do the work and work with me, we will get you an A or B. Okay, but you've got to do the work. And like I say, it's a little bit easier because you're going to have your notes and things. You don't have to remember as many terms. But we're going to do 16 chapters in 15 weeks, and we're going to go through a lot of information. So it's still not uneasy. Okay, attendance policy. You got to participate in the course. Okay, we're going to have 14 or 15 live lectures. If you miss more than 5 of them, unless you have an extremely valid reason, that's going to be, because if we have 15 and you miss 5, you missed a third of the lectures. Okay, they will be posted online. I understand if you have something going on, or if you've got to work that night, or you had a flat tire, that's not a problem. Okay, just check in with me. Let me know, hey, I missed this lecture because of X, Y, and Z. Okay, it's not a problem at all. Check your email twice a day. Make sure you check into the system, because I know if you've been into the system, I just got a email from the Library Learning Commons Resource Center. They are going to have tutoring this summer, but it will be online. He gave me a link. I will be posting that in the announcements tomorrow. Okay, so there will be online tutoring available, and most of the online tutoring available will actually be the tutors who were working in the library, who obviously are not working in the library now, because we had tutors for anatomy and physiology Monday through Friday. Okay, but they will be some of the online tutors available to you. And I just got that email from the head of the Learning Resource Center, so I will be giving that to you in an announcement. Okay, and there's technical help desk, and if you need any help, so you need to look around here. And let's get back to the calendar of activities, which is the most important thing. I really don't need that, but that's what I'll keep thinking here. This is a little bit weird talking like this. Calendar of activities, the most important thing here. Okay, first thing the calendar of activities says. Let's open one up here. I don't know why that did that, but that's okay. Calendar of activities. Make it a little bit bigger. All right. Subject to revision. More than likely, there will be a revision, okay? But you'll be notified by way of announcements, and I will also make announcement in lecture, okay? If I revise the calendar of activities, the new calendar of activities will be in the start of course documents, and it will say calendar of activities revised. So if I had to revise it July 3rd, we say calendar of activities revised July 3rd. So you would want to click on that calendar of activities to get the latest updates, okay? Normally on my announcements, I just copy and paste what the week's work is. We'll just look at the first week. This is week 1. Week runs from Monday to Sunday. However, I don't know if you've looked at this, everything is due on Monday. All the online computer classes I've taken here at FSCJ They've always had everything due on Sunday night, and I absolutely despise that. I absolutely despise that because I spent like most of you, I waited till Saturday or Sunday to do my homework, and I spent most of the weekend working on homework. Okay, so everything that I have due, okay, is due on Monday, and it's due at 11:55. So I hope you notice that, not 11:59. And if you turn something in late, if you turn your lab module in, there's a big red thing at the top that says late. Okay. If you turn it in 11:57, that's late. Okay. So don't get yourself into that point. Today we're going to have orientation, okay, course overview, and we're going to have a lecture, okay, and we're going to talk about chapter 1, okay. Pearson Mastering My Lab is assigned. You have 4 assignments, I believe. The first is Introduction to Pearson My Lab. You have a homework quiz, a reading quiz, and a chapter test. You can do all of those as many times as you wish up until the due date. So if you go through the chapter test and you don't get everything right, then just keep doing it, okay? Now keep doing it and learn it, okay? Don't just keep doing it just to get a perfect score, but keep doing it until you get the score you want, okay? So as you can see, that is due on 6/8 at 11:55. Well, as I told you, look, exam 1 opens on 6/1 at noon. All the exams open at noon, and they close that fall. So they open on a Monday and they close on a Monday. So they close 1 week later. You'll have 1 week to take the exam at your convenience, whenever you want to take it. But it closes at 11:55, and that's when the Pearson assignments are due, okay? We also have a lab module, and we'll have one most weeks. Some weeks it may say lab module, but nothing's written in there, okay? And I left spaces available in case the lab module, I don't have any put together lab modules for this class as I did. I had to put together the ones for the other semester, but I have them in, I'm putting them together as we go based on the same example labs that we would be doing if we were in the lab. Just you're learning the material either through worksheets, you're learning the material through interactive physiology, you're learning material through PhysioX, you're learning material through dissection videos. So you will learn the material. It's just you will not have lab practicals like we were doing before. The lab module is assigned this Monday. If you will look, this is 5/4, 5/11, 5/18. The lab module is due on 5/18, 11:55. So the module, you have 2 weeks to do the lab module. The lab module, have 2 weeks to do the lab module. All the chapters for that particular test are due on the day that that test closes. I will have some people here that won't get them done. And I'm sorry for you, okay? I'm really sorry for you because I'm assigning them in advance to you, okay? You have 6/8, today is 5/5, so in chapter 1, you're gonna have a month. After we get through the first exam, the next test will be 5, 6, 7, and 8. So when I open this chapter 5, I will have the Pearson assignments for 5, 6, 7, 8 there. Some people like to work ahead. That's fine, okay? But they will be there. They won't be there for the first 4. They will be assigned. They will come open every week on Monday morning, okay? So this is very well set up, and I can say with almost 100% certainty there'll be revisions to it. There'll be, for whatever reason, there'll be revisions. I will announce the revisions when a revision occurs. I will put up the new revised calendar of activities with the date that it was revised. Okay, it will be underneath the first calendar of activities. Do not, under any circumstances, use the calendar of activities in the syllabus. That is only current for the date that the syllabus was constructed, which is the same date this calendar of activities was constructed. Rather than have to go back and revise the syllabus every time, I just revised this calendar of activities. So before this 15 weeks is out, we may have this revised 2 or 3 times, but you will have the initial calendar of activities, you'll have the revision, and then this other revision, there'll be one right after the other. Okay. So I announce it, and each and every week. So next week I will copy and paste from 2, this section here from 2 all the way down, and that will be in your announcement. I will go through and elucidate everything, but that will be in your announcement too. So the calendar of activities in this class is very important. This is your roadmap. This is your guide. This tells you exactly when we're going to have every exam. This tells you exactly when to go over every chapter. This tells you exactly what we're going to have a lab module on. It tells you exactly when the lab modules are due. Okay. So this is the place where you need to place your emphasis here. All right, let's look for a couple more things here. All right. Calendar of activities, student registration. This is your registration, if you've not already seen it, for your Pearson. Okay. This is a PDF file, so if you don't have a PDF file, you can just read it out of here. This, you go to here, you select student. A number of you are already registered. This is a valid ID because I have 5, 6, 7, 8 people in every class that have already signed up. Okay, that have already signed up, and so that is working. This is the Pearson that's set up for this class, and this was the settings that was printed out. And so use this to sign into your Pearson. And you can get a temporary 2-week thing. If you need to get a 2-week trial thing, you can do that. Pearson offers that because they know some people, financial aid hadn't come in, or you didn't get paid, or you haven't gotten paid. Okay. But go ahead and sign up for your 2 weeks and go ahead and get started in the stuff. Okay. And so you can learn on that. So this is the Pearson assignments. And let's look back up here, home. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to go to the student view here for a minute. This is my view here. This is going to be your view. This is what you have. Okay. You have, these tabs here. You have starter course documents here. You have chapter 1. When I talk about, this is the lecture notes. In the other class, I call them student notes. Okay. These are fill in the blank. These are Dr. Oler's notes. You do one of 2 things. You can either have the bookstore copy them, which people have done in the past. I just put them up here and let people copy them on their own. And so these correspond to the slides. She uses these to have people be active during her lectures when she's actually doing lectures. You can take these and you can actually go through the slides and fill these in. Use this for the basis for the exam. Use this for the basis for the exam. There will be more to it than this, but as we go further and further into class, there will be more and more basis for the exam. Okay. Go back up here. Lastly, I want to show you, this is your lab module here. Somebody sent me an email. Where is the lab? Where is the lab? This is chapter 1, lab module chapter 1. I couldn't make it any more clear. Where is the lab? Here's chapter 1. Here's the lab module chapter 1. Next time you'll have chapter 2. You'll have the slide, you have the notes and the slides. You'll notice here, not only did I put Dr. Oler's notes in her PowerPoints, but I also put the slides from Pearson. They are an additional resource for you. So they're the slides that actually go with the textbook. They're in more great detail. And I will find a couple. They are all, if you want to watch a YouTube video, all you have to do is write Merib, who's our author, Anatomy and Physiology. And when you put that into the search engine, to the search function of YouTube, tons of stuff will come out, okay? And there's all kinds of videos there. So back to this. This is, you click on this, okay? You're then going to come up with this, which is a Word document, okay? And for some reason or other, it does that on here, and I don't know why, but that's okay. All right, well, we're just going to have to look at it the other way. Okay, so you have questions here. Answer the following questions by typing in the answers on this document. It's a Word document, so all you have to do is type in the answers. Save this document. It's a Word or PDF file with the following last name, first name, underscore here, lab 1 anatomy. Okay, you're gonna label the file as that. Okay, here's an example. Cooper Sheldon. If you don't know who Sheldon Cooper is, he was the one of the physicists on the Big Bang. Underscore lab 1 anatomy. Now you've got this saved. Okay, once you've got this saved, and so there's a number of questions here. If you listen real good, and if you don't listen real good, and go back to the Pearson Part B slides, which is what we're going to use, which is where most of this stuff came from. This stuff came out of the lab book and the Pearson Parts B slides. There's just 20 questions I couldn't remember. Okay, but this comes from the Pearson Part B slides from your lab book, but also from the textbook, because the textbook and the Pearson Part B slides will answer all these questions. Okay, you will then go up here to assignments. You will click on assignment. Okay, here's the assignment. It's already open. Okay, you click on assignment. Okay, resubmit assignment. I've already, I was testing this. I already submitted an assignment, and I forgot that I submitted an assignment. And I looked on my grading sheet, and I saw somebody had already submitted this, and I thought, who in the world would have already done this? I mean, we just started class. It turns out when I went to the grading thing, I was there. So what you do is going to click on, it won't say resubmit, okay? Then you browse your computer, okay? So you click, it will say submit assignment. You browse your computer, go browse the computer. All right, and we're going to go down to this PC documents, and wherever you saved it at, okay? I've got lab modules here. I'm going to look at the lab modules, and I'm going to look for just, I'll just pick this one. That happens to be the right one, maybe, okay? And open it up. And notice here that that you see that you have uploaded the lab module. So it is now here, and all you have to do is go and click submit assignment, okay? And then it's uploaded. But make sure that this is listed up here, and you can actually click on it so that you can see it. If you don't do these steps, then I don't get the assignment. And if I don't get the assignment, you didn't do it. And I will not accept it any other way. So you have to save it as a Word file or a PDF file and upload it to me. Those are the two best ways to do that. And so we've left students. So this is how it looks for me because I set it up here. All right, we're going to stop for a minute. Does anybody have any questions? Let's see if I can unmute everybody. Participants. Unmute all. Okay, does anybody have any questions for me? Or you can type them in here if you want to. Is anybody still here? Somebody say yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. You have a question?
So do we actually need a textbook at all or no?
Well, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
So my question is, what did you say that we can do as many times as we want? Was it the assignment?
It is the Pearson assignments. Okay. Actually, you can do anything you want. The lab module is up there now. It is due in 2 weeks. You can do it now. Pearson Chapter 1 assignments are up there now. You can do them now. They're not due till June the 6th, June the 8th, but you can do them now. Okay.
As many times as I want.
As many times as you want until you maximize your grade. And so the advantage of that, number one, if you do it repetitive, hopefully you're learning. Okay. I got that idea from my program professor. I took 4 programming classes, and that's what he did with his quiz every week. If you take it as many times as you wanted to, until you got a perfect score. And I thought, well, that's a good deal because I learned something every time. Okay, so that you can do that. Any other questions?
So we need to pay for the Pearson subscription, and we need to get like our class book to
If you get the textbook from the bookstore, it's an ebook. Okay, it's an ebook, and it has the Pearson subscription with it. When you sign up for Pearson, you can buy it right then if you want to. You don't have to get it from the bookstore, or you can just sign up for the Pearson subscription. If you've got an older version of the textbook, it will still be fine. So if you've got last year's, if you've got that we're using the 11th edition, you've got the 10th edition and 9th edition, it'll still be fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a question. The book for Pearson, when you go on Pearson, it's a lot cheaper than it is at the bookstore. So is that the correct book that I'll need?
I don't know.
Oh.
That was always my confusion because I don't know.
Is it the 11th edition? Is it modified Pearson?
Since we doesn't say.
Okay, we can only one person talk at a time. Okay. Is it the 11th edition?
Since we have to buy online, we can't see what the book is. It just gives us an ISBN, but even when we put that in online to search, it won't show us a book. But it was $240. So I'm assuming it comes with the online.
No, if you go through the Pearson link that I gave you, okay, for the student registration, that is the 11th edition.
I think the book on the bookstore from FSCJ, it includes the atlas, and some of them come with the lab manual. So that's why it's like almost a $500 book compared to the $140 online book.
I didn't know. I did know they came with an atlas. Atlas is good. You can do the same stuff online. The lab manual, I never, that's a new thing they put in the lab manual, but I did not know. Okay.
You're constantly leaking in that enamel structure.
Okay, if somebody, listen, you can't have anything going on in the background. You can't have the TV going on in the background. You can't have people talking in the background. You can't have your phone going on in the background. I'm trying to answer questions for people, okay?
I have one question.
Okay.
For the lab modules, when we submit our answers, do we have to write complete sentences for the fill in the blank questions?
For the lab modules, for the questions, there are no fill in the blank questions on the lab modules.
Okay.
The fill in the blank questions are the student notes. The lab module has a question. The question might only be one answer, okay? One of the questions is what muscle separates the thoracic from the abdominal pelvic cavity? You only need to write one word there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm gonna mute all. We'll go ahead and start on the slides. We will be done by 7:15 or 7:30. There's not very much in the slides this time, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and mute everybody. And you'll have another opportunity to ask questions when we get done. Okay, we're gonna go down to our module. We're gonna click on the lecture notes we've already looked at, the PowerPoints, okay? Okay, if I say any ugly words, please don't let anybody report me, okay? I'm not used to not having a bite. Anatomy and physiology, okay? Anatomy and physiology. Everybody takes anatomy and physiology. I took anatomy and physiology in college, okay? I was a plastic surgeon. I took anatomy and physiology. I learned a lot of anatomy. I learned a lot of physiology, okay? It is the start course for any healthcare degree. It's a great course to know, okay, even if you don't go into healthcare, because you have so much more knowledge than the majority of your friends on Facebook. What I call those people are the Facebook certified infectious disease specialists, okay, whose last hard science course they took was the one in high school where they dissected the frog. And that's actually, I borrowed that from Big Bang, okay? But you will have, even if you don't go into healthcare, you'll have so much more information. You'll be able to converse with your doctor. There's a lot of advantages to taking anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is 2 words. Anatomy is to cut up, study of structures, okay? Physiology is how things work, not at the gross level, okay, but at the molecular level, okay? You, as healthcare providers in the future, the majority of class usually goes to healthcare, so that's why I say that, we'll be doing things that are unimaginable. You'll be doing nanotechnology, okay? You will be doing gene manipulation. You'll be doing things with artificial intelligence, things that I never even dreamed of, okay? I was born in 1950. In 1952, Watson and Crick wrote or published that paper on DNA, okay? Yeah, I was one of the first people to get the polio vaccine, okay? Polio was a disease when I was in my early childhood, not one of the first, but I was one of the first groups. I mean, we went to the high school and got sugar cubes because everybody was getting polio vaccine there. So we are in a remarkable technological time, okay? Remarkable technological time. And the things that I did and the things you will do, it will only be left to your imagination. I got 2 goals for you. The first I told you is everybody gets an A or B in this class, okay? Everybody gets an A or B in this class. You're gonna have to work for it, but if you don't get an A or B in this class and you wanna go into healthcare, it's gonna be hard for you getting your program, okay? The second one is when you finish your education, if you're not smarter than me, then I and a whole bunch of other people have failed you, okay? So you need to put your ultimate time into this, because this is the way I look at it. One day I may be laying in the emergency room, and this works better in a face-to-face class. I might be laying in the emergency room on a stretcher and look up, and you're my doctor, okay? Or you're my nurse, or you're my physician's assistant, or nurse practitioner, or you're going to take my X-ray or draw my blood. I want to make sure you know that information. Or if you're my lawyer, I want to make sure you know the information. Or if you decide to build bridges that I'm going to drive across in Jacksonville, I want to make sure you know what you're doing, okay? So I have a vested interest in making sure you know what you do, okay? And so I am serious when I say, I want you to learn the material and I want you to be the best student you can be. So physiology is how things work at the molecular level, and it's going to get more and more based on the molecular level. And so we don't study these in isolation. Now, when I was in the medical school, both my brother and I went to medical school. He went to the University of Tennessee and I went to the University of Louisville. I had separate courses in anatomy. I had a gross anatomy course and a physiology course. He had systems where he studied the anatomy, physiology, the pathology, everything about a particular system, okay? And there's pluses and minuses for doing that way. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He practices up in Memphis, and I teach people here. And I'm retired, and I like being retired. So we don't talk about them in isolation, okay? We talk about them together, okay? We have a hierarchy of life, and that actually starts at the submolecular level, but I'm talking about submolecular level. Chapter 2, the first exam is probably the hardest exam because there's so much information you have to learn, okay, or relearn. It is assumed that you have had a chemistry and biology course, not necessarily in college, but in high school. Chapter 2 is a huge chapter on chemistry. Chapter 3 is a huge chapter on cells, okay? And there's a lot of information there. But you will relearn that information and learn what's important, and we'll move on, and you'll do like everybody else who's come before you and like everybody else who will come after you, okay? And you'll learn it, and you'll take the exam, and you'll forget it, and you'll learn it when you go to your program, and you'll forget it, and you'll learn it, and you'll go to your boards, and you'll forget it. And then if you happen to go into that particular specialty, you will learn it again and learn it really well, okay? I learned stuff that in medical school that I never used. I learned a lot of things I learned really well. So we go from atoms into molecules, okay? And from molecules, we go to organelles. And then from organelles, we go into cells. And then from cells, we go into tissues. And from tissues, we go into organs. And then we go into an organism. And that's the hierarchy of life. That's how things got together. Despite it, I don't care how you believe, how you believe it, everything got together. For one reason or another, it got together, and it got together in some kind of system, and we're left with an organism here. Atoms are the smallest molecules that we'll talk about. We'll actually talk about small subatomic particles, which will be protons, neutrons, and electrons. You will have a good lab module on chemistry that'll help you with your review, okay? And literally, atoms determine how everything's going to function, okay? This is a schematic of an atom, schematic of a nucleus, and schematic of the orbits around the nucleus. Molecules are atoms that combine together to interact. One of the most important molecules we have is H2O. That's 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. Without it, we couldn't be alive. It's one of the first things they look at when they send a probe out. So when we have the Mars rover, we look for water. They found water. They think they found water. When we send probes out throughout the solar system, okay, we've gotten to the edge of our solar system. We're out beyond now the edge of our solar system. And not our universe, obviously, but our solar system. And they go by and do spectral analysis, one of the things they're looking for, okay? There is also a molecule, C6H12O6, which you'll hear me talk about a lot. That's glucose. I mean, that is our fuel. That is the most efficient way to mobilize ATP, okay? And they're held together with chemical bonds. This is a schematic of a cell with a bunch of organelles, and we will talk about these ad nauseum, and I'll tell you how I remember, okay? And we will go into the cell in some detail. That will be in chapter 3. And so we have organelles. It is thought that some of these organelles, like the mitochondria, were independent and came together, and other things got organized around them. And that's how cell developed, because the mitochondria actually has some of its own DNA and RNA, okay? From the cellular level, okay, molecules go together to form cells, okay? The cell, if you've heard about the cellular theory, the cell is the smallest unit of life. Everything's composed of cells, okay? Cells get together and form bigger things. It is a functioning unit of life. They are multicellular organisms, which is what we are, multicellular, or the unicellular organisms like some with bacteria and protozoa. This is a multicellular organism, this is a cell of a multicellular organism, and this is a single cell organism. We at the tissue level, okay, we have a bunch of cells get together, okay? So we would have a bunch of cells that exhibit a contractile function and get together and form muscle tissue. So we have muscle cells get together and form muscle tissue. And we'll learn there's 3 different types of muscle tissue. There's skeletal muscle, there's smooth muscle, and cardiac muscle. And we'll learn that in chapters 9 and 10. And so we're going to learn a lot of stuff, okay? In Anatomy and Physiology 1, it's primarily anatomy with a little bit in physiology. In Anatomy and Physiology 2, it's primarily physiology with a little bit of anatomy. And so we're going to learn a lot of anatomy here, okay? The organ level, we got different tissues come together. So an organ, okay, an organ is made of a number of different tissues. So you might have epithelium to line the inside of the organ. You might have muscle for the organ to contract. You might have connective tissue to hold the organ together. And I'm describing the rudimentary segments of the heart, okay? But they all come together. And then you have organ systems, okay? And we study these as a general rule, okay? We're going to study the skeletal system, the muscular system, the nervous system, okay? The endocrine system, special senses, which are part of the nervous system. They're organs together, okay? They come together. And there is interaction, okay? The GI system absorbs nutrients, okay? Heart pumps these nutrients down to cells that metabolize the nutrients, okay? So the GI system is going to absorb, for example, glucose. Glucose is going to be broken down in the cells into CO2 in the water. Well, the CO2 needs to be, and also going to have waste products. The waste products need to be eliminated by the kidneys, and the CO2 needs to be blown off by the lungs. So these organ systems, okay, interact with other organ systems. They're not in isolation. And so then we get to the level of the organism, okay, and all the organisms, all the organs work together to provide function. Characteristics of life. What differentiates this dog from this rock, okay? From the cellular level on, these characteristics are demonstrated by all levels of organization. Number one, you have to have boundaries, okay? We'll learn about the cell boundary in chapter 3, okay? It's a biphospholipid layer, okay? And we'll learn about why it's that way, why it's biphospholipid layer, but you gotta have boundaries. Plant cells have a cell wall around them, okay? And that's a unique thing because plants need a cell wall. And they need to be able to maintain organizational structure. They need to be able to move, okay? Either the cell needs to be able to move or the organism be able to move. It needs to be able to respond to its environment, okay? If there has the ability to move and there are harsh conditions, hopefully be able to either to adapt or to move away from the harsh conditions. We need to be able to digest things, okay? You and I, if we eat animal protein, do not utilize the amino acids, do not utilize the animal protein. The animals have the same amino acids we have. We digest their protein down into the amino acids, and then we utilize those amino acids. Same way if we eat complex starches. We cannot use complex starches, but we can digest these things down into more simple layers. Metabolism, okay? We have metabolism builds things up, builds proteins, and we have metabolism that tears things down. Okay, so those are called anabolism and catabolism. Builds up is anabolism, tears down is catabolism. If you're around people that are big time bodybuilders, you know that they take anabolic steroids, ANABOLIC, building up muscle. Okay. They were a subsegment of my practice when I was in plastic surgery, and they're some of the most unhealthy people. Not talking about the fitness people. I'm talking about the pure and simple bodybuilders that are taking medications on a daily basis. They're very unhealthy, and most of them don't live very long. Excretion, I'm sorry.
You said metabolism is divided in catabolism and what?
Anabolism and catabolism.
Thank you.
Okay. I thought I muted everybody. I guess I didn't. Excretion, living organisms create waste products. We need to be able to get rid of waste products, okay? You need to be able to get rid of waste products. And then finally, you need to be able to reproduce, okay? Doesn't do us any good if we can't propagate the species, okay? So there is reproduction when you get to anatomy and physiology too, and your goal is number one, do not wait longer than 2 semesters. This is summer. I would take anatomy and physiology 2, either next fall or next spring, because you lose knowledge exponentially that you don't use, okay? So if you're taking anatomy and physiology 1 this summer, which you are, you're here with me, okay? I would make sure I take anatomy and physiology 2, either next fall, in other words, next semester, or in the spring, because you need to be able to use that. Growth, okay? You need to be able to grow at the cellular level and at the organizational level, okay? Cells need to be able to differentiate. We start with a totipotential cell, okay? Every cell in our body has the potential to be a different cell. It has the DNA in it, okay? It's 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs of chromosomes to be any other cell in the body, okay? For some yet to be understands, not to be completely understood, a signal is given to that cell to differentiate into a kidney cell, to differentiate into a heart cell, differentiate into a muscle cell, a nervous system cell, a nerve cell. But we have the ability to differentiate. And so when they do genetic manipulation, they may be manipulating genes to get to try to regrow heart tissue, okay? The heart is a muscle that heals by fibrosis. So if you have a fully contracting heart and you have a heart attack, that heart muscle that does not get blood dies and you form fibrotic tissue, you form a scar, okay? So if you had 20% of the tissue die, you have a scar there, and so you have lost a significant part of function of the heart. They are now implanting stem cells, heart stem cells, to hopefully gather regrowth, and they're attempting to do the same thing in the nervous system for quadriplegics and paraplegics to try to get nervous system. And these will be the types of things that you'll be doing in the future. Okay, it'll just be amazing stuff that you'll be doing in the future. Homeostasis, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Negative and positive feedback. You need to be able to maintain a stable internal environment. Okay, you need to be able to maintain a good glucose level. You need to maintain a good temperature. You need to be able to maintain a good thyroid hormone level. Okay, and so we have systems in our body to help us maintain that. Okay, we want to maintain that within a certain level that's suitable for good life. If we don't do that, okay, then we can get into some problems. Okay, regulation of body temperature, regulation of heart rate, respiratory rate, all kinds of problems we can get into. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of mechanisms. Okay, that I can guarantee you pretty much they'll be on the test. Okay, and I would, without using these comprehensive diagrams, I'll explain this to you. Temperature. We like to keep our temperature within our internal body temperature with a certain range, okay? So we'll say 98.6 is a normal body temperature. So maybe I'm just making 98.6, I'm not making this up, but say we want to keep it between 98 and 99.5. And these numbers I'm making up, but it's just to illustrate a point. Or let's say between 98 and 100. If we go out into an environment, okay, that is hotter than normal and our body temperature starts to go up. If our body temperature starts to go up, we have sensors in our body. We're not going to talk about particular sensors now, but we have sensors in the body that senses that elevation in temperature. Senses that elevation in temperature. Our body does certain things to lower that temperature, okay? One of the first things it does is we start sweating, and our peripheral veins, okay, the veins on our arms usually dilate. So if you've ever been outside, and it's very easy to do in Florida on a hot day, okay, and your temperature starts going up because it's going to go up, okay? Especially if you're exercising, gardening. I'm a big golf fan, playing golf. We're going to start sweating, okay, and our veins are going to dilate. That is a means to lower the temperature, okay? That is a means to lower the temperature. So understand this is a concept of negative feedback. If something goes up, we're trying to get it to go back down. Positive feedback would be if something goes up, we want to have it go up any further, go up even further. We're not trying to do that. We're actually trying to get it to go down, okay? So when our body temperature gets above 100, then we're going to dilate our peripheral veins and we're going to start sweating. Okay, now we've got back down to 98.6. Okay, for some reason or another, it's a very cold night. Okay, very cold night, and our body temperature starts dropping. Our body temperature starts dropping. First thing we do is we constrict those peripheral veins, so we're not exchanging heat with those peripheral veins, and we start shivering. Okay, shivering is a reflex built into the body, and when we shiver, we activate muscles, and when muscles are activated, they generate heat. Okay, so if the body temperature goes down, we're trying to elevate it back up. We're not trying to get it to go down further. If we were trying to get it to go down further, that would be a positive feedback. Okay, we're not trying to do that. We're trying to get it to go back up to normal. So we're trying to take it away from cold back up to normal. You do the same thing with your glucose levels. We have two hormones that are made by the pancreas. You don't need to know them, okay? They're made by the pancreas. One's insulin and one's glucagon, okay? One's insulin, one's glucagon. If our blood sugar is too high, we produce insulin. The insulin drives the glucose into the cells. Our intravascular, our blood glucose levels then go down, okay? If our blood glucose levels go too low, okay, then glucagon is released, okay? And glucagon mobilizes glycogen in the liver, converts it back to glucose, and it may convert some of the other proteins and fats to put them into the cycle to get the glucose back up, okay? That is also negative feedback. The glucose is going too high, we secrete insulin, we're trying to get it go back down to normal. Glucose goes too low, we secrete glucagon to try to get back up to normal. So we're not trying to keep it going in the same direction, we're actually trying to get it to go back in the other direction. So that's negative feedback. Positive feedback is just the opposite, okay? And perfect example is blood clotting. Once you get a laceration in a blood vessel, you're going to get chemicals released, and those chemicals are going to continue to be released so that you get more and more cells, more and more clotting factors, more and more things going on until that clot is set up in that particular vessel, or until that system is preserved, okay? So a positive feedback is with these particular things. One's blood clotting, the other is oxytocin and labor, okay? Once labor starts, our posterior pituitary, you don't need to know that, other than to know that this is the Dr. Phillips caveat. There's a bunch of hormones secreted by the pituitary. There's several hormones secreted by the anterior pituitary, only 2 secreted by the posterior pituitary, oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone, ADH. So if you can remember those 2, it's secreted by the posterior pituitary, and 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, and you're taking your boards and they ask you that question out of the blue, and you say, I don't have a clue. You remember that Dr. Phillips said there's only 2 out of the posterior pituitary and everything else has to be anterior pituitary. And I'll go over things like that a lot, okay? Because that's a good way of remembering stuff. Now, if they ask you about specific other hormones and what their actions are, then you have to know that in a bit more detail. But those are little things that I can provide you. So positive feedback is we want to keep pushing the pedal to the metal until we get the particular reaction we want. Okay. So with oxytocin labor, we want to keep the person in labor until the child is delivered. Okay. Then we've got another feedback mechanism to decrease the level of oxytocin. And same way with blood clotting, we want to keep the clotting mechanism going until we get the clot formed and whatever laceration there is repaired. That's positive feedback. Negative feedback is we're actually trying to get whatever system it is to go back towards normal. If it's too high, we're trying to bring it down. If it's too low, we're trying to bring it up. Those are concepts you need to know. They will be on the test, okay? Negative feedback and positive feedback will be on the test. More than likely, it'll be a shorter answer question. And you will have to explain what they are and give an example of each. And so if you were able to explain this off these slides, you'd be in good shape, okay? If you're able to explain this off these slides, you'd be in good shape. That's what I'm talking about a short answer question, okay? Won't be anything directly from the notes per se, but it comes right out of the notes. You just have to be able to explain it. And the best way to do that is take out a piece of paper and write it down for yourself or try to explain it to somebody else. If you can explain to somebody else, if you can teach somebody else what it is, you probably know what it is. Okay, so that's the end of those slides. So let's get over to the other slides and then we'll take questions afterwards. We go right back up here. We can go to Homework Modules, okay? We don't always use the Pearson slides, but it just happens to be in this one particular thing, we're going to use them. This happens to be a PDF file, okay? Unlike Blackboard, which had literally an unlimited storage capacity, okay? Canvas doesn't, all right? And so because Canvas doesn't, you can tell I was going over the slides. I usually go over the slides before the lectures. I've been giving this all the time, but I pick up things and I forget things. You will too. Okay, so for this one particular unit, we wanted to go over the Dr. Oler slides, which were the PowerPoints, and then we want part B of the physiology. This actually, most of the questions that are on your lab module, you can answer right out of here. You can answer right out of here. You'll hear some of the answers, okay? So anatomical terms, you need to be able to describe something, okay? So you're going to have to call somebody. If you're the nurse, the physician's assistant, nurse practitioner, or if you are a doctor, you're the ER doctor and you call the plastic surgeon, and you need to be able to tell me in some detail where the laceration is, okay? You know, if you just say the laceration is on the arm, that doesn't mean anything to me, okay? That doesn't mean anything to me. It means it's somewhere between the shoulder down to the fingertip, okay? And actually the arm is not an anatomical term, but we use it all the time. So the standard anatomical position is the body erect, the feet slightly apart, the palms facing forward, okay, and the thumbs pointing away from the body. Normally when we stand erect, we stand with our hands by our sides, okay? But that is not the correct anatomical position. Hint, hint, I think this might be one of the questions on your lab module, since it's so important. Body erect, feet slightly apart, palms facing forward with the thumbs pointing away from the body. Once we have that, we can do directional terms, okay, based on, okay, that anatomical position. And you and I can talk with a physician in Europe, talk with a physician in Russia, talk with a physician in China, and we can accurately describe an anatomical position to them that you and I both know, okay? Now, in the anatomical position, if you are looking at somebody, it is not your right and left. It is the patient or so it's not the observer's right and left. It is the person being observed right and left. So when you talk about the right side of the body, or when you talk about the right arm, it is and we'll use the word patient, it's the patient's right arm. So if you're looking at them head on, you know, it is not your right side, okay? It is their right arm. And so you have to understand that. Always in the lab practical, we'll go over these the first class, and by the time the lab practical people would forget these, okay? You will have some of these on the exam, I can guarantee you, okay? Notice here is somebody in the anatomical position. They are standing upright. Their hands are pointed away from the body. I mean, they can be down to the body. They're pointed away from the body with the thumbs outward, okay? With the thumbs outward, palms facing forward. Thumbs outward, palms facing forward. Superiorly, okay, the superior portion is also called the cephalic portion, or towards the head. Inferior is pointing towards the feet. So superior and inferior, okay? Anterior is towards the front. We also call that ventral, okay? Anterior is towards the front. Posterior is towards the back. We call that dorsal, if you will remember the dorsal fin on a fish, okay? Anterior is towards the front. Posterior is towards the back. Medial is towards the midline of the body, okay? Lateral is away from the midline. Medial is towards the midline of the body. So if you had a middle drawn right down the middle of the body, medial is toward the midline of the body. Lateral is away. Intermediate, I never use. I want to ask about, I don't know who uses. I guess you would have, that'd be intermediate between the midline of the body and the lateral surface of the body. It's not a term I've ever used in all the medicine I practiced. Proximal and distal confuse people at times. Oh, if you hear me rocking, I have a rocking chair at my desk. I have a Brumby rocking chair from a special company in Marietta. Yeah. Proximal, if you're talking about a limb, it's a relationship to where the limb is origin, the attachment of the limb, okay? So proximal means towards the attachment, okay? Proximal. So in the lower extremity, be towards the hip. In the upper extremity, be towards the shoulder. Distal means away from the attachment. Distal means away from the attachment. Doesn't necessarily have to be the attachment. It can be another structure. The hand is distal to the elbow. So it can be in relationship to another structure. The hand is distal to the elbow. The elbow, okay, is distal to the shoulder. The elbow is proximal to the hand, okay? So it's in a relationship. We have, and everybody should be able to know this, superficial and deep. Superficial, and you look down there, you don't see anything bad on the cut, it's superficial. If you see muscle cut, okay, it's getting a little deeper. If you see bone, it's real deep, okay? We have axial and appendicular. This will be going to refer to the skeleton when we get to the skeleton. We have an axial skeleton and an appendicular skeleton. One thing you're going to miss is being able to actually go over the skeletons and go over the bony parts, but we have to do the best we can. Take time to go over this. You don't have to know all the structures. You have to know the general areas, okay? And there's a lot of superfluous stuff that you won't use. So just look this over, but you've gone over the terms. Same way here, you got the back, the buttocks, the popliteal area. The popliteal area is in the knee area, okay? Now this is important. Guaranteed, 100% going to be on the test, guaranteed. Sagittal plane, frontal plane, and transverse plane. Sagittal plane is you divide the body into two halves, a right half and the left half. If it's mid-sagittal, it means it's down the midline and you've divided the body into the right half and to the left half. A frontal or coronal plane means you've divided the body into an anterior portion and a posterior portion. A sagittal plane, we divide the body into a right half and a left half for two. A frontal plane is we divide the body into an anterior portion and a posterior portion. A transverse plane is we've cut the body essentially in sections, okay? Like you would a cucumber. That's what, if you've ever looked at a CT or an MRI and they take a transverse section, that's what you see, okay? And so sagittal plane, vertically right and left. Mid-sagittal is something off the midline. Parasagittal is cut off center. Frontal, front and back. Horizontal. Horizontal is transverse. Oblique you don't use very much. Corresponding MRIs. This would be a sagittal plane, so we're looking at the body cut in half. This would be a frontal plane, okay? Might want to understand this. One of the questions on the lab module is you take an x-ray. What kind of plane are you getting, all right? And this is the old thing that you've seen. So it's a transverse. You look at the CT scan, okay? That's what you see there is a transverse plane. And so you'd get multiple CT scans depending on what you're going through, okay? And this just explains the planes more. And you can go through this. Notice when you're getting a scan, if you've ever had a scan before, they are taking multiple transverse slices. So how are these other images generated? They're computer generated, okay? They're computer generated. And so this is one of the things that big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all those other things have aided us in the fact that we now can take transverse slides and we can recreate these images, because we're not cutting the body like that when we do the scan. We're doing the scan in transverse wedges, but we can recreate this. And so that's an important thing to know. And a lot of times we have to wait on the technology. And these are planes, okay? Now we're going to talk about body cavities. We have dorsal body cavities and ventral body cavities. Make sure, I'm giving you a hint now, that you learn those planes. Make sure that you learn those three planes. They will show up on the test in some way, form, or fashion, okay? Might be a multiple choice question, might be a true false question, might be a matching question, might be a short answer question. You'll never have to draw anything on the test, okay? The test is online, you won't have the capability of drawing anything, but you will have to explain things in words, okay? Dorsal body cavities, we learned that dorsal fin on a fish is on the back, okay? So dorsal body cavities would be towards the back, posterior, and ventral body cavities would be anterior. The dorsal body cavities are the cranial cavity and vertebral cavity. And here they are, the cranial cavity and the vertebral cavity, okay? Ventral cavities are the thoracic cavity and the abdominal pelvic cavity. The ventral cavities, okay, are the thoracic cavity and abdominal pelvic cavity. Notice the thoracic cavity is divided into 3 compartments: pericardial compartment for the heart, mediastinal compartment for the great vessels and the esophagus, and the pleural cavity for the lungs, okay? Notice there is a muscle dividing the thoracic cavity from the abdominal pelvic cavity. Notice there is a muscle. There's the name of the muscle. Notice there is a muscle dividing the thoracic cavity from the abdominal pelvic cavity. We call it perineal cavity, abdominal pelvic cavity, okay? You might need to know that for your lab module, okay? And you have the name of it right in there. And when we breathe, this muscle contracts, it drops down to here. So if you are a singer, they always say to put your hand on your abdomen to make sure you're taking deep breaths. Well, that's why the diaphragm is actually dropping down here, okay? So you don't feel it drop, but you feel the movement of something, okay? And when we breathe, we drop the diaphragm down here. That creates a pressure difference inside the chest, which makes the pressure lower than the outside pressure, than the atmospheric pressure. Air rushes in. That's why we breathe. We've lowered the pressure inside here and air rushes in. Now the diaphragm relaxes. We've elevated the pressure greater than atmospheric pressure, and all of a sudden it rushes out, because now we got higher pressure inside here than we do outside. That's anatomy and physiology too. It's a simple mechanism thing. Thoracic cavity, abdominal perineal cavity are anterior cavities. Thoracic has 2 pleural cavities surround the lung. Mediastinum also contains the pericardial cavity, which has the heart, and the thoracic organs such as the esophagus, the trachea, and great vessels. Great vessels is the aorta and the vena cava. Abdominal cavity, stomach, intestines, spleen, pelvic cavity, urinary bladder. Simple stuff. If you have a hiatal hernia, okay, hiatal hernia, obviously the esophagus and the aorta and the vena cava have to go through the diaphragm. So if you have a problem with the opening where the esophagus goes through the diaphragm down to the stomach, you can have some herniation, or you can have some loosening there. Stomach acid can reflux into the esophagus, okay, because of that hernia. And if the hernia is big enough, some of the stomach can actually move up into the thoracic cavity. If you have a ruptured diaphragm, if you're going to do trauma and you take an x-ray, and the x-ray, you take a chest x-ray and you see air, okay, you see air consistent with intestines into the thorax, you've ruptured the diaphragm. And you now have intestines, you could have small bowel, you could have stomach up into the thoracic cavity, okay? And you know that because you know anatomy, okay? You know that because you know anatomy. So we have membranes, okay? We have membranes. We'll start with the easy things. The parietal membrane, okay? The parietal membrane, these are membranes that coat cavities and go on top of organs. The parietal membrane lines the inside of the cavity. The visceral membrane goes on top of the organ. If we're talking about the heart, the parietal pleura lines the thoracic cage, okay? The visceral pleura sits on top of the lungs, and there's a potential space in there. If we're talking about the heart, the parietal pericardium lines that pericardial space. The visceral pericardium sits right on top of the heart. There is a potential space there, okay? With fluid in there, it allows for motion. If you get a ice pick wound to the heart and you get some bleeding into that space, remember there's 2 membranes there. There's a membrane on top of the heart, and there's a membrane lining that pericardial sac, and they're tough membranes, especially the parietal pericardium. It's a tough membrane. You actually have to cut it if you're doing open heart surgery. Then you get an ice pick injury or some kind of nice tip injury to the heart, and each time the heart beats, then some blood is going to come out in that space. That space is a fixed space because that parietal pericardium is tough. So each time the heart beats, The blood's going to come out. It's eventually going to fill up that space, and the pressure in the space is going to equal to or greater than the pressure inside the heart. So when you reach that point, that's called cardiac tamponade. If you have a patient in the emergency room that you're taking care of, and they have any kind of injury in that general area, and their pressure starts to go down, that may be one of the reasons. Okay. And like I say, parietal means lines the cavity. So parietal pleural lines the thoracic cage, right next to your ribs, and visceral pleural sits right on top of the lungs. Okay, double layers separated by a cavity with some fluid. So if you violate the parietal pleura, then air rushes in from outside, and you get a pneumothorax. Pericardium, pleura, peritoneum is a different thing. We'll talk about that. But this is just an illustration of those parietal and visceral pleura, or parietal and visceral pericardium. Okay. You also can get an infection. Okay. If you get inflammation of the pleura around the heart, that's called pericarditis. If you get inflammation of the linings around the lungs, it's called pleuritis. Okay. So you can get pericarditis. You can actually get constrictive pericarditis, which means that inflammation has formed fibrosis, fibric tissue, and so it's actually causing a constriction. Okay, it can be so severe, and so that's one of the things that can happen if you get inflammation. So if you've heard somebody has pericarditis, you now know what's going on and occurring there. Okay, and obviously they can get inflamed. Pleurisy, pleuritis. If there is inflammation of the coverings in the abdomen, okay, called peritoneum, okay, you can get peritonitis, okay. If you get a ruptured appendix, ruptured gallbladder, ruptured stomach ulcer, you can get peritonitis, okay. We can divide the body cavity up into a number of regions. This is the one that I use throughout my entire medical career, okay? This 4 region thing. Right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, left lower quadrant. This is the one you should learn, okay? And it's easy to learn, and it's easy to see which organs are associated in the particular quadrants, okay? There's some overlap. Obviously, there's some small bowel here, okay? But up here, primary in the left upper quadrant is the stomach. In the right upper quadrant, the liver comes down below the rib cage, but it's the gallbladder. Right here in the right lower quadrant, you have the cecum. This is the small bowel joins the large bowel. This is called the cecum. Okay, you don't have to know that. I'm just pointing it out to you. This is where the appendix comes out. So if you have a person, especially a young person, comes with a fever, nausea, maybe some vomiting and diarrhea, and you press down at a point 2/3 of the way from the umbilicus to the anterior sphenoid spine, which is your hip bone. They've actually given that a name. It's called McBurney's point. Now, in anatomy, we've gone away from people's names, okay? But that is called McBurney's point. And if you press down and release real fast, and the person jumps off of the stretcher, that's called the chandelier sign, because they're reaching for the chandelier. And that is, unless you can rule out something else, that's pathognomonic for appendicitis. Okay, it's pathognomonic for appendicitis. So these are just by knowing what structures are located where. If you've got right upper quadrant pain, okay, and you get bloated, you have problems digesting fats, you've probably got a gallbladder problem. Okay. Left upper quadrant pain, you may have a stomach ulcer. Left lower quadrant pain, you might have diverticulitis or diverticulosis. You could have other things, but these are the more common things, okay? And so this is what I use in my medical career. Right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, right lower quadrant, left lower quadrant. They have, as always, the anatomy people, will keep naming things, okay? And so they divide this up into 9 areas, okay? And I never use this, but the epigastric area is right below the xiphoid bone. That bone, that little bone right there at the bottom of your rib cage there. That's the epigastric area. This is the umbilical area, and these are the inguinal areas, okay? You won't be tested on that, okay? I won't ask you what organ is in the umbilical area, okay? You might have to know what organs are in these areas, okay? Excuse me, these areas up here. But if you just remember this diagram, look at this diagram, you can pick that out, okay? I'm, there's certain things that, in my clinical experience have not been useful, okay? And so we have gone over them to know them, but, in clinical, unless things have changed, you don't use these very much at all. Obviously, there's other body cavities. There's the oral and digestive cavity, the nasal cavity, the orbital cavity, middle ear cavity, and there's synovial cavities or joint cavities, okay? So that is the rest of the slides. So let me, no, I don't want to do this. Let me bring this up here. No, I didn't do that. Let me try to mess up a thing. No. All right, as usual. I'm trying to find my chat function. For the moment, I've forgotten where it's at. Okay, mute all. No, that didn't work. Mute all, no. Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourself and ask questions. Anybody have any questions?
In regards to the student contract, where are we submitting that to?
Were you here the first part of the lecture?
I came in like minute 6:02.
Okay, well, during the first part of the lecture, I said that here's what typically happens in a face-to-face class. I hand it out to you, you turn it in to me within a couple of weeks. I've given it to you today, or I gave it to you. Yeah, I gave it to you today. I give you a chance to look over it. I will create a place for you to upload it under assignments. Okay, that will be created next week. Okay, it's obviously you don't get a grade for it. It's just a portal to be able. So you will go ahead, download that, type your name in it, type the date, type the course and the semester, and save it. Okay, as student contract with your name. Okay, just like our typical. One thing you'll notice is that every document that we save will have that same characteristic. You'll have your last name, first name, underscore, and then some identifier as to what the document is. You will then save it and upload it under assignments under student contract. And so that will be available starting week 2. And you just have to get it. If you want me to post your grade, I'll still grade your assignment. But if you want to post your grade for exam 1, you will have to have submitted your contract, or you won't get your grade for exam 1 until you do. Okay, does that satisfy your question? Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. Next question. Anybody else have a question? All right, in summary, we did an orientation for the class. Okay, orientation of the class, went over the expectations of the class. Everything is fairly well laid out. I answer by email. Okay, answer by email, usually the same day. Sometimes it takes me for the next day. I go to bed between 9 and 10 o'clock. If you ask me a question after that, I won't respond to the next day. Okay, please use email format. Okay, otherwise I'll write email policy and send it right back to you. Okay, make sure that rather than ask me a question, you go over the documents that I have given you, which may have the information that your question's going to ask, rather than ask me a question on information I've already given you that's up on the website. Somebody else got a question? All right, well, if nobody has a question, we're done. I will, as soon as this thing is downloaded to me from the cloud, I will put a link up and I will put it in the announcement that it's there, okay?
I have a quick
And-
question. I'm sorry. If we want to rewatch this, just if we felt like we needed to review this, how do you rewatch this?
Or did
recording?
you just listen to what I said?
I'm sorry, I must have missed that. Okay.
Okay. I said as soon, see, this is in the cloud, okay? I will get a link, okay? I will get a link when this gets processed. I will then post the link under the lecture, okay? And I will notify you by announcement that the link is there. And once the link is there, then you can watch it as many times as you want to. Does that satisfy you? Ma'am?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out how to unmute it. So that's,
Well,
I'm sorry.
you obviously are unmuted because you're talking to me.
Yeah, I just had to figure out on my phone on the app how to unmute it. So
Okay.
I got it.
Okay, you got it?
I got it.
All right, good. Okay, any other questions? All right. Well, like I say, Susan, and I also will provide you the link tomorrow. Okay. Remember, I said they have online tutoring available. I just got the email from the Library Learning Commons that provides the tutoring center. Normally, it's tutoring in the library and online. Okay. But now they're going to do online, and rather than have some other tutors from some other schools, it's actually going to, the majority, I think, are going to be our tutors that are used to tutoring our students in anatomy and physiology. And that will be available to you. I'll put that announcement up tomorrow also. So watch for your email, okay? And for the announcements, remember, I communicate with the whole class by announcements, and I'm big on announcements. So make sure you check your email in the morning, in the evening. I'm here to answer questions that, you know, most of you did not anticipate the course being offered in this way, okay? You didn't sign up for an online course. I didn't sign up to teach an online course, okay? But we're both here. We did pretty good, I think, for the first day, okay? And it'll get even better because I had to give a lecture on Friday to the Anatomy and Physiology 2 class, and I should get even better by then. I've been watching videos 2 or 3 days trying to figure out how to do this, okay? Anybody else got any questions? All right, I'll see you in 1 week, okay? But please don't hesitate to email me, okay? I may sound like an old rough curmudgeon, but I'm here to help you. If you read the introduction, I'm here to help you in your particular case, get to Anatomy and Physiology 2, and then ultimately to achieve your career goals. Because I came from a very small town. My daddy was a blacksmith. We didn't make a whole lot of money, okay? And I achieved a lot of things just on sheer determination and will, and you can do the same thing, okay? I did not come from money. With my family, my mama was a nurse and my daddy was a blacksmith, and we had 2 doctors out of the family, okay? So if I can do it coming from a little town in North Georgia up in the mountains, you can do it too. So whatever you want to do, whatever you dream about, you can do, okay? I will see you next week, and I'll be answering your email. You have a good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.